Hello there. Last night, while you were asleep, something extraordinary happened. Your brain created an entire world that felt completely real. You saw places that don't exist. You talked to people who weren't there. You experienced events that never happened. And yet, while it was occurring, you didn't question any of it. You accepted flying through the sky as normal. You weren't surprised when someone you know suddenly looked completely different. You didn't think it was strange when you found yourself back in your childhood home, even though you're an adult now. This experience, this nightly journey into impossible realities, is something you'll do again tonight, and tomorrow night, and every night for the rest of your life. We call it dreaming, and despite experiencing it thousands of times, most people know almost nothing about what's actually happening in their brains when they dream, why we dream at all, or what these strange experiences might mean. Tonight, you're going to discover 100 fascinating facts about dreams that will change how you think about what happens every time you close your eyes and drift off to sleep. If you enjoy learning remarkable things about science and the human mind while you relax and fall asleep, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel so other curious people can discover it too. Now let's explore the science of dreams. Right now, billions of people around the world are getting ready to do something that would seem absolutely insane if we didn't all do it every single day. They're going to lie down, close their eyes, and gradually allow themselves to become completely unconscious. Their awareness of the world around them will fade. They'll stop responding to sounds and sights. For all practical purposes, they'll be as close to dead as a living person can be. And then, while they're in this state of unconsciousness, their brains will do something remarkable. They'll generate vivid hallucinations. They'll create entire sensory experiences that feel real, but exist nowhere except inside their own heads. They'll experience intense emotions in response to situations that aren't happening. They'll lose their ability to think logically. They'll lose their sense of time. And when they finally wake up, they'll usually forget most of what they experienced. This is sleep and dreaming, and it's one of the most mysterious and fascinating aspects of human biology. For most of recorded history, people believed dreams came from outside themselves. Ancient Egyptians thought dreams were messages from the gods. They took dreams so seriously that they built special temples where people could go to sleep and receive important dreams. And they employed professional dream interpreters who were among the most powerful people in society. These interpreters kept detailed records of dreams and their meanings, creating some of the oldest written documents that still exist today. If you dreamed about drinking beer, it meant you would suffer. If you dreamed about looking in a mirror, it meant a new life was coming. If you dreamed about a cat, it meant a good harvest. These interpretations might seem random to us now, but they reveal something important. Even thousands of years ago, people recognized that dreams felt significant, that they seemed to mean something, even if that meaning was mysterious. The ancient Greeks and Romans also believed dreams had special power. They built temples dedicated to Asclepius, the god of medicine and healing, where sick people would come to spend the night hoping to receive a healing dream. Priests would interpret the dreams and prescribe treatments based on what the person had seen while sleeping. Historical records show these dream temples operated for over 1,000 years and were incredibly popular throughout the ancient Mediterranean world. People traveled great distances to sleep in these temples, convinced that the gods would visit them in dreams and cure their illnesses. Some of the greatest philosophers of the ancient world wrote about dreams. Aristotle suggested, controversially for his time, that dreams might come from within the mind rather than from external gods. Plato believed dreams could reveal truths that were hidden from our waking minds. These ancient thinkers were grappling with questions about dreams that we're still trying to answer today. In cultures around the world, dreams have been given profound significance. Many Native American traditions held that dreams were more real than waking life, that the dream world was where your spirit actually lived and traveled while your body rested. Young people would go on vision quests deliberately inducing intense dreams through fasting and isolation, seeking guidance about their purpose in life. The Iroquois people believed that dreams revealed the hidden desires of the soul, and they had elaborate social customs around sharing and honoring dreams. Australian Aboriginal cultures have the concept of dream time, a sacred era when ancestral spirits created the world, and dreams are seen as a way of connecting with this eternal realm. In traditional Tibetan Buddhism, there are sophisticated practices for becoming conscious within dreams and using that consciousness for spiritual development. These diverse cultural approaches to dreams all recognize something that modern science is now confirming. Dreams aren't just random noise. They're connected to something important about how our minds work. The scientific study of dreams began relatively recently in human history. For a long time, there was no way to study dreams objectively. You couldn't see them or measure them directly. You could only rely on people's memories of their dreams, which were often vague and unreliable. Then, in the early 1950s, researchers at the University of Chicago made a discovery that changed everything. A graduate student named Eugene Azarinsky was studying the sleep of infants when he noticed something odd. At certain times during the night, the baby's eyes would move rapidly back and forth under their closed eyelids. At first, he thought his equipment was broken, but the pattern kept appearing. He mentioned this to his advisor, Nathaniel Kleitman, and they decided to investigate whether adults showed the same pattern. They began monitoring volunteers throughout the night, using electrodes to measure brain activity, eye movements, and muscle tension. What they discovered was revolutionary. Sleep wasn't just one uniform state. People cycled through different stages with dramatically different characteristics, and during one particular stage, several remarkable things happened simultaneously. The eyes moved rapidly back and forth. The brain showed patterns of electrical activity that looked similar to being awake. The breathing and heart rate became irregular, and when they woke people up during this stage and asked what was going through their minds, people almost always reported they had been having vivid dreams. They called this stage REM sleep, standing for rapid eye movement, and its discovery opened up an entirely new field of scientific research. Suddenly, scientists had an objective marker for dreaming. They could watch someone sleep, see when their eyes started moving rapidly, and know the person was likely dreaming. They could wake people up at precise moments and ask about their dreams immediately, before the memories faded. They could study how much time people spent in REM sleep, what happened in the brain during this stage, and what functions it might serve. For the first time, dreams could be studied scientifically in a laboratory. This single discovery led to thousands of research studies and transformed our understanding of sleep and dreams. One of the first things researchers learned from studying REM sleep is that we don't dream just once per night. We dream multiple times, cycling in and out of REM sleep throughout the night. When you first fall asleep, you don't immediately start dreaming. Instead, you gradually descend through progressively deeper stages of sleep. Scientists typically divide sleep into several stages, based on the patterns of electrical activity in the brain. In the first stage, you're in very light sleep. Your muscles start to relax, your heart rate slows down, your breathing becomes more regular. Your brainwaves slow down from the rapid, irregular patterns of waking consciousness to slightly slower rhythms. This stage only lasts a few minutes. You can be easily awakened during this time. And if someone does wake you up, you might not even realize you'd been asleep. As you move into the second stage of sleep, distinctive patterns appear in your brain activity. Scientists have identified specific features called sleep spindles and K-complexes, which are brief bursts of brain activity that appear regularly during this stage. Researchers believe these patterns might be involved in processing memories and also in protecting your sleep by blocking out external stimuli that might wake you up. During stage 2 sleep, you're more deeply asleep than before, less aware of your environment, but still relatively easy to wake. You actually spend more time in stage 2 sleep than any other stage, roughly half of your total sleep time. If someone wakes you during this stage and asks if you were dreaming, You might report some vague mental activity, maybe fleeting thoughts or simple images, but usually nothing that feels like a real dream with a story and characters and events happening. Then you descend into what scientists call slow-wave sleep or deep sleep, stages 3 and 4 in older classification systems. During these stages, your brain waves become much larger and slower, oscillating in synchronized patterns that never occur when you're awake. This is the deepest phase of sleep. Your heart rate drops to its lowest point. Your breathing is slow and regular. Your muscles are fully relaxed. Your body temperature decreases. This is when your body does much of its restoration and repair work. Growth hormone is released during deep sleep, helping to repair tissues and build muscle and bone. Your immune system does crucial maintenance work during this time. If someone tries to wake you from deep sleep, you'll feel groggy, disoriented, and confused. You might not remember being awakened, and if asked whether you were dreaming, you'll almost always say no. During deep sleep, your brain seems to be most offline, most disconnected from generating the vivid conscious experiences we call dreams. But here's where it gets fascinating. After you've spent some time in deep sleep, your brain doesn't continue getting more and more deeply asleep. Instead, it changes direction. You start ascending back through the lighter stages of sleep. But instead of waking up, something extraordinary happens. About 90 minutes after you first fell asleep, you enter REM sleep for the first time. Suddenly, your brain becomes highly active again. If you were watching an electroencephalogram showing the electrical activity in the brain, you'd see it shift from the large, slow waves of deep sleep to rapid, irregular activity that looks remarkably similar to being awake. Your eyes start moving rapidly back and forth behind your closed eyelids. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes faster and irregular. Your blood pressure goes up. Your brain is consuming oxygen and glucose at rates comparable to, or sometimes even higher than when you're awake and thinking hard. In almost every measurable way, your brain looks like it's awake and active, except you're not awake. You're deeply unconscious, and this is when the vivid dreams happen. But there's something else occurring during REM sleep that's absolutely crucial for understanding dreams. While your brain is becoming highly active and generating these intense dream experiences, your body undergoes a dramatic change. Most of your voluntary muscles become paralyzed. This paralysis, which scientists call REM atonia or muscle atonia, is caused by active inhibition of the motor neurons in your spinal cord. Your brain is actually sending the same signals it would send if you were awake and moving around, but these signals are being blocked before they reach your muscles. Your brain tells your legs to run, but the message never gets through. Your brain tells your arms to reach for something, but your arms don't move. Only certain muscle groups are exempted from this paralysis. The muscles that control your breathing continue working normally, because obviously you need to keep breathing while you sleep. The tiny muscles that move your eyes continue functioning, which is why your eyes move during REM sleep even though the rest of your body is still. Your heart keeps beating. But the large skeletal muscles in your arms, legs, torso, and neck are all inhibited. You are essentially paralyzed from the neck down. If you could somehow become conscious during REM sleep while the paralysis was still in effect, you'd find yourself completely unable to move your body no matter how hard you tried. This actually does happen to some people in a disturbing experience called sleep paralysis, which we'll discuss more later. This paralysis serves a vital protective function, and we know this because of what happens in the relatively rare cases when the paralysis mechanism doesn't work properly. There's a condition called REM sleep behavior disorder, where the normal paralysis fails to occur during REM sleep. People with this disorder physically act out their dreams, and the results can be dramatic and dangerous. They might punch, kick, jump out of bed, run across the room, or engage in complex behaviors, all while remaining completely asleep and unaware of what they're actually doing. These movements aren't random. When researchers wake people who are acting out dreams and ask what they were dreaming about, the dreams almost always match the physical actions. Someone who is punching in their sleep reports dreaming about being in a fight. Someone who jumped out of bed reports dreaming about escaping from danger. Someone who was running reports dreaming about fleeing from a threat or chasing something. The consequences of acting out dreams can be severe. People with REM sleep behavior disorder have broken bones, suffered concussions, damaged furniture, and injured their bed partners. There are documented cases of people breaking through windows, falling down stairs, or attacking their spouses, all while asleep and dreaming. In one case, a man dreamed he was playing football, tackled his bedroom dresser at full speed, and dislocated his shoulder. In another case, a woman dreamed she was being attacked by an intruder, fought back violently, and broke her hand punching the wall. These unfortunate cases demonstrate just how important the normal paralysis mechanism is. Without it, we would all be in danger every time we had an action-filled dream. The paralysis protects us from ourselves, allowing our brains to generate intense, active dream experiences while keeping our bodies safely still. The study of REM sleep behavior disorder has also revealed something profound about the nature of dreams themselves. It shows that during normal REM sleep, your brain is actually generating the motor commands that would produce the actions you're experiencing in the dream. When you dream about running, your brain is sending the signal to run. When you dream about fighting, your brain is sending the signal to fight. The only reason your body doesn't move is that these signals are being blocked. In other words, your brain isn't just creating a passive experience like watching a movie. It's actively simulating the experience of doing things, sending out the same neural commands it would send if you were really doing those things in waking life. The dreams feel real because, from your brain's perspective, they are real. Your brain is genuinely telling your body to perform these actions. It's just that your body isn't listening. Scientists have used modern brain imaging technology to study exactly what happens in different parts of the brain during REM sleep and dreaming. Using techniques like functional MRI and PET scans, researchers can watch which areas of the brain light up with activity while someone sleeps and dreams. What they've discovered is that REM sleep involves a very specific and distinctive pattern of brain activation, quite different from either waking consciousness or other stages of sleep. Understanding this pattern helps explain why dreams have the particular characteristics they do, why they're so visual and emotional, but so lacking in logic and coherence. The visual cortex, located at the back of your brain, becomes extremely active during REM sleep. In waking life, this area processes the information coming from your eyes, turning patterns of light into meaningful visual perception. But during REM sleep, your eyes are closed. You're not receiving any visual input from the outside world. So what is your visual cortex doing? It's generating visual experiences from the inside. It's creating hallucinations, producing vivid imagery that feels as real as anything you see when you're awake, even though it's coming entirely from within your own brain. This is why dreams are so intensely visual. Your visual cortex is running at full power, but instead of processing external input, it's creating its own images. The limbic system, a collection of brain structures deep in the middle of your brain that's involved in emotion and memory, also becomes highly active during REM sleep. In particular, the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure that processes emotional information and is especially involved in fear and anxiety, can show even higher levels of activity during REM sleep than during waking. This explains why emotions in dreams are often so powerful and intense. You might wake up from a nightmare genuinely terrified, your heart pounding, your body flooded with adrenaline, even though nothing real threatened you. The fear was real because your amygdala generated a real fear response. Similarly, the happiness from a joyful dream, the sadness from a tragic dream, or the anxiety from a stressful dream are all genuine emotions, produced by the same brain structures that generate emotions when you're awake, even though the situations triggering these emotions were completely fictional. The hippocampus, another structure in the limbic system that's crucial for forming new memories and retrieving old ones, also shows significant activity during REM sleep. Researchers believe the hippocampus plays a key role in dreams by providing access to stored memories, which then get woven into dream narratives. This explains why dreams often incorporate elements from your past, why people and places from years ago can suddenly appear in your dreams. Your hippocampus is pulling up these memories and making them available to be incorporated into the dream experience. But the memories don't appear in their original form. They get mixed together, combined with more recent experiences, blended with emotions and fantasies, creating the bizarre combinations that characterize dreams. While these areas of the brain are becoming more active during REM sleep, other areas show decreased activity, and this is just as important for understanding dreams. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, located at the very front of your brain just behind your forehead, becomes much less active during REM sleep. This area is crucial for logical thinking, planning, and what psychologists call executive function. It helps you organize your thoughts, make decisions, plan for the future, and critically evaluate information. It's also involved in what's called reality monitoring, your ability to distinguish between what's real and what's imaginary, between what's actually happening and what you're just thinking about. When the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex quiets down during REM sleep, you lose these abilities. This is why you can't think logically in dreams. This is why you accept the most impossible things as perfectly normal. You're flying through the air. Your logical brain that would normally say, "Wait, humans can't fly," is offline. You're talking to someone who died years ago. The part of your brain that would recognize this as impossible isn't working. Your childhood home has merged with your current apartment and also somehow contains rooms from your workplace? Sure, seems fine. A person you know looks completely different or suddenly transforms into someone else. You don't even question it. The critical reality-checking functions of your brain are simply not available during dreams. This pattern of brain activity during REM sleep, with high activation in the visual and emotional areas and low activation in the logical reasoning areas, perfectly explains the phenomenology of dreams, the subjective qualities of what dreams actually feel like. Dreams are intensely visual and vividly emotional, but they lack logical coherence. They're full of impossible events, bizarre transformations, and strange juxtapositions that don't bother us at all while we're experiencing them. The various parts of your brain that are active during REM sleep are essentially creating the dream, each contributing their specialized functions. Your visual cortex creates the imagery. Your emotional centers create the feelings. Your memory systems provide the content. Your motor cortex generates the sense of movement and action. But your logical, planning, reality-checking systems are largely asleep, which is why the dream can be as strange and impossible as it wants to be without triggering any sense that something is wrong. Researchers have also discovered that the pattern of brain activity during REM sleep isn't exactly the same from one dream to another. Different types of dream content seem to involve different patterns of activation. For example, when people report having very emotional dreams, the amygdala shows particularly high activation. When people report dreams with a lot of movement and action, motor-related areas of the brain show more activity. When people report dreams involving other people and social interactions, areas of the brain involved in social cognition show increased activation. Your brain isn't just generating random activity during REM sleep. The specific pattern of activation corresponds, at least to some degree, with what you're actually experiencing in the dream. One of the most fundamental questions about dreams is simply why we have them. What function do dreams serve? Why does the brain spend so much time and energy creating these bizarre experiences? These questions have been debated for decades, and while we still don't have complete answers, research has revealed several important functions that REM sleep and dreaming appear to serve. It's likely that dreams don't have just one function, but rather serve multiple purposes simultaneously. One of the most well-established functions of REM sleep relates to memory. A tremendous amount of research over the past few decades has shown that sleep, particularly REM sleep, plays a crucial role in consolidating memories, transforming new experiences from temporary, fragile traces into stable, long-term memories. The evidence for this comes from many different types of studies. If you learn something new and then get a good night's sleep, you'll remember it better than if you stayed awake for an equivalent amount of time. This isn't just because sleep prevents new information from interfering with what you learned. Something active is happening during sleep that strengthens memories. When researchers monitored the brain activity of rats learning to navigate a maze and then recorded from the same brain cells while the rats slept, they discovered something remarkable. During sleep, the same patterns of neural activity that occurred during maze learning would replay, often in a compressed, faster form. It was as if the rat's brain was rehearsing what it had learned, practicing the neural patterns associated with navigating the maze. This replay phenomenon, which has now been observed in many species including humans, appears to be one of the ways that the brain consolidates memories during sleep. Human studies have shown similar effects. If you teach people a task before bed and then deprive them specifically of REM sleep by waking them up every time they enter REM, they show impaired memory for that task the next day compared to people who got normal, undisturbed sleep. This effect is particularly strong for certain types of memories. REM sleep seems to be especially important for procedural memories, which are memories for skills and how to do things rather than facts and events. If you spend the afternoon learning to play a new piece on the piano, practicing a tennis serve, or mastering a new dance step, REM sleep that night will help consolidate those motor skills. Numerous studies with musicians, athletes, and people learning various motor tasks have shown that performance improves after sleep, and the improvement correlates with the amount of REM sleep obtained. But memory consolidation isn't the only function of REM sleep and dreaming. Another important role appears to be emotional regulation and processing. During REM sleep, your brain seems to process emotional experiences from your waking life, and this processing helps reduce the emotional intensity of those experiences. There's an old saying about sleeping on a problem, and it turns out there's real science behind this folk wisdom. When something upsetting happens, it often bothers you less after you've slept. This isn't just the passage of time or psychological distance. Something specific is happening during sleep, particularly during REM sleep, that helps regulate your emotional responses. Brain imaging studies have provided insights into how this works. During REM sleep, the amygdala, a brain structure heavily involved in processing emotions, especially fear and stress, is very active. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, which normally helps regulate the amygdala and control emotional responses, is less active. Some researchers have proposed that this creates a unique brain state where emotional memories can be reactivated and processed without the strong stress response that would occur during waking. It's like your brain is able to work through emotional content in a safer, offline mode, gradually reducing the emotional charge associated with those memories. Supporting this theory, studies have found that REM sleep deprivation impairs emotional regulation. People who are prevented from getting REM sleep show increased emotional reactivity the next day. They overreact to minor stressors and have more difficulty controlling their emotions. They also show impaired ability to read other people's emotions, suggesting that REM sleep is important not just for processing our own emotions, but for social emotional functioning more broadly. Chronic sleep deprivation, which often means chronic REM sleep deprivation, is strongly associated with mood disorders, including depression and anxiety. While the causal relationships are complex, there's growing evidence that inadequate REM sleep can contribute to emotional and psychological problems. The emotional processing function of REM sleep might also explain why dreams so often have strong emotional content and why dreams tend to incorporate emotionally significant themes from our waking lives. Your dreams aren't random. They reflect what matters to you emotionally. If you're stressed about work, work-related themes appear in your dreams, though usually in disguised or metaphorical form, rather than literal replays of work events. If you're having relationship difficulties, themes of conflict, separation, or connection appear in your dreams. If you're anxious about an upcoming challenge, dreams of being unprepared or facing obstacles become more common. The specific content of the dream might be bizarre and fantastical, but the underlying emotional themes are drawn from your real concerns and experiences. Research with people who have experienced trauma provides some of the most compelling evidence for the emotional processing function of dreams. People with post-traumatic stress disorder often have recurring nightmares related to their traumatic experiences. While these nightmares are distressing, some researchers believe they might actually represent the brain's attempt to process and integrate the traumatic memories. In successful recovery from trauma, the nightmares often gradually change over time, becoming less literal and frightening, which might reflect the emotional intensity of the trauma being gradually reduced through repeated processing during REM sleep. When trauma is severe enough or recent enough, the normal emotional processing of REM sleep might be overwhelmed, leading to the recurring nightmares that characterize PTSD. But in most cases, REM sleep appears to serve a therapeutic function, helping us work through difficult emotions and experiences. Another proposed function of dreaming relates to creativity and problem-solving. Throughout history, there have been numerous accounts of people solving problems or having creative insights in their dreams. The chemist Auguste Kekule famously claimed that he discovered the ring structure of the benzene molecule after dreaming about a snake biting its own tail. The inventor, Elias Howe, supposedly got the crucial idea for the design of the sewing machine needle from a dream. The author Mary Shelley reported that the idea for Frankenstein came to her in a dream. The musician Paul McCartney claimed that he heard the melody for the song Yesterday in a dream. While some of these stories might be embellished or simplified, they point to something that many people have experienced, the sense that sleep can help with creative thinking and problem solving. Scientific research has provided evidence that this isn't just anecdotal. Sleep, particularly REM sleep, does appear to enhance certain types of creative problem solving. In one influential study, researchers gave people puzzles that required creative insight to solve. Some participants worked on the puzzles and then stayed awake, while others worked on them and then slept. The group that slept, especially those who got significant REM sleep, were substantially more likely to solve the puzzles when they tried again later. Sleep didn't help with simple memorization or straightforward logical problems, but it did help with problems that required seeing things in a new way or making novel connections between ideas. The reason seems to be related to how the brain processes information during REM sleep. While you're awake, your thinking tends to be focused and directed. You follow logical paths, you stick to familiar associations, you think in well-worn patterns. During REM sleep, the brain seems to operate differently. The normal constraints on thinking are relaxed. The brain makes unusual connections, linking together ideas and memories that wouldn't normally be associated. Most of these connections are probably nonsensical, which is why dreams are so often bizarre and incoherent. But occasionally, these unusual connections might lead to genuine insights, new ways of thinking about a problem, creative solutions that wouldn't have been discovered through normal waking thought. This might explain why dreams are so weird. The bizarreness isn't a bug, it's a feature. By creating a mental state where normal rules don't apply, where anything can connect to anything else, where logical constraints are lifted, REM sleep might be allowing your brain to explore a much wider space of possibilities than it normally would. Most of what emerges from this exploration is useless, but occasionally something valuable emerges. A new idea, a fresh perspective, a solution that wasn't visible before. In this sense, dreams might be a form of mental play, a safe space, where your brain can experiment with unusual combinations and novel possibilities without any real-world consequences. Another fascinating theory about why we dream relates to threat simulation. This idea, proposed by evolutionary psychologists, suggests that dreams might have evolved as a way to practice dealing with dangerous situations in a safe environment. If you think about the content of dreams, a lot of them involve threats, challenges, and problems. You're being chased by something. You're trying to escape from danger. You're facing some kind of conflict or difficulty. Studies that have analyzed large collections of dream reports find that negative emotions and threatening situations appear in dreams much more frequently than you'd expect if dreams were just randomly assembling content. This bias toward threat might not be accidental. The threat simulation theory proposes that our ancestors who were better at recognizing and responding to dangers would have been more likely to survive and pass on their genes. Dreams might have provided a way to mentally rehearse responses to threats without actually being in danger. A person who dreamed about being chased by a predator would get practice in the cognitive and emotional responses needed for escape without the risk of actually being eaten. Over evolutionary time, individuals whose dreams provided better threat simulation training might have had a survival advantage, leading to the selection of brain mechanisms that generate these types of dreams. In the modern world, we face different threats than our ancestors did, so the specific content of threatening dreams has changed. You're more likely to dream about missing a deadline or showing up to an important event unprepared than about being attacked by a lion. But the underlying mechanism of mentally simulating challenging situations might be the same. Critics of the threat simulation theory point out that many dreams aren't threatening at all, and even threatening dreams often involve fantastical elements that wouldn't provide realistic practice for dealing with real dangers. Proponents counter that what matters isn't whether the specific content is realistic, but whether the dream activates and exercises the neural and emotional systems involved in threat detection and response. Even a bizarre dream about being chased by a monster might be providing useful practice in the general skills of recognizing danger, experiencing appropriate fear, and mentally simulating escape. The debate continues, but the threat simulation theory has generated interesting research and highlights how dreams might serve adaptive functions related to survival. Yet another perspective on the function of dreams comes from researchers who study the brain from a more mechanistic, bottom-up perspective. Some neuroscientists have proposed that dreams might not have a specific function at all, but rather might be a side effect of other processes happening in the brain during sleep. According to this view, REM sleep serves important functions related to brain development, maintenance, and memory consolidation, and dreams are simply the conscious experience that results from the brain being active during this process. Just as you have conscious experiences when your brain is active during waking, you have conscious experiences when your brain is active during REM sleep. We call those experiences dreams, but they might not serve any particular purpose beyond being the subjective correlate of a brain in REM sleep. This activation synthesis hypothesis, first proposed by psychiatrists Alan Hobson and Robert McCarley in the late 1970s, suggested that REM sleep is initiated by random activation in the brainstem, and dreams are the brain's attempt to make sense of this random activity. When your visual cortex receives random activation, it generates imagery. When your emotional centers receive activation, they generate feelings. When your memory systems are activated, they retrieve memories. The prefrontal cortex, which would normally organize all this into a coherent narrative, is less active, so the result is a bizarre, loosely connected experience that we call a dream. According to this view, looking for deep meaning in dream content is like looking for deep meaning in the patterns you see in clouds. They're interesting, they reflect how your brain interprets ambiguous stimuli, but they weren't created to convey a message. The activation synthesis hypothesis has been influential, but also controversial. Critics point out that dreams aren't as random as the theory suggests. Dreams show consistent patterns. They incorporate personally meaningful content. They reflect the dreamer's concerns and experiences. If dreams were just the brain responding to random noise, you'd expect much more randomness in their content. Defenders of the theory have modified it over the years, acknowledging that the brain brings its own biases and patterns to the process of synthesizing dreams, so dreams aren't purely random, even if they start from random activation. The debate between those who see dreams as serving important functions and those who see them as essentially meaningless byproducts continues in the scientific community. The truth is probably that REM sleep serves multiple important functions, and dreams, the subjective experiences we have during REM sleep, might serve some functions while being incidental to others. REM sleep is clearly important for memory consolidation, emotional processing, and brain development. Whether the conscious experience of dreaming is necessary for these functions or is simply something that happens while the brain does its work is still debated. But regardless of whether dreams themselves have a purpose, they remain endlessly fascinating as a window into how the brain creates conscious experience. Let's talk about what actually happens when you dream, the subjective experience itself. One of the most striking features of dreams is how visual they are. When people are woken from REM sleep and asked to describe their dreams, the vast majority of reports include rich visual imagery. You see places, people, objects, colors, movements. For most people, vision is the dominant sense in dreams, just as it is in waking life. But the visual experience of dreams is different from waking vision in interesting ways. Dream imagery is often described as being less stable than waking perception. Things change and morph. A person might transform into someone else mid-dream. A location might shift from one place to another without you moving. These transformations don't usually bother the dreamer at the time. They're simply accepted as part of the dream reality. Another interesting feature of dream vision is that it's often incomplete. If you think carefully about your waking visual experience, you realize that you can see a complete, detailed scene in front of you. You can see the overall layout, and you can also focus on specific details if you choose to. But in dreams, when people are asked to describe exactly what they saw, they often report that the visual experience was more vague and incomplete. You might dream about being in a room, and you have a general sense of what the room looks like. But if you try to remember specific details, like what was on the walls or exactly what furniture was there, those details are often missing or fuzzy. It's as if your brain creates just enough visual information to support the dream narrative, but doesn't bother filling in all the details the way it would for waking perception. While vision is the dominant sense for most people's dreams, other senses can be involved as well. Auditory experiences, hearing sounds and voices, are quite common in dreams. People report hearing conversations, music, environmental sounds, and various noises in their dreams. Touch and physical sensations also appear. You might feel the sensation of wind blowing on you, of water touching your skin, of walking on different surfaces. These physical sensations can feel completely real in dreams. The sense of bodily movement is also present in dreams. When you dream about walking, running, or flying, you have the kinesthetic sensation of your body moving through space, even though your physical body is lying still. Taste and smell, on the other hand, appear much less frequently in dreams. When researchers ask people whether they experience taste or smell in their dreams, most people report that these senses rarely or never appear. When they do occur, they're usually not as vivid or detailed as the visual or auditory aspects of the dream. This might be because taste and smell are processed by different, evolutionarily older parts of the brain than vision and hearing, and these areas might be less active during REM sleep. Or it might simply reflect that taste and smell are less dominant in our waking lives compared to vision and hearing, so they're also less prominent in our dreams. Pain in dreams is an interesting topic. Some early dream researchers claimed that you couldn't feel pain in dreams, but systematic studies have shown this isn't true. People do sometimes experience pain in dreams, though it's less common than you might expect, given how often dreams involve potentially painful situations. You might dream about being injured or attacked but not actually feel pain, or the pain might be less intense than you'd expect for the situation. However, when pain does occur in dreams, it can feel quite real and can even wake you up. There are also documented cases where a real physical sensation, like a headache or muscle pain, gets incorporated into the dream narrative. You might dream about being hit on the head because you actually have a headache, or dream about your leg being injured because your leg has fallen asleep from lying in an awkward position. The emotional content of dreams is one of their most striking features. Dreams can evoke incredibly intense emotions sometimes more intense than anything you experience during normal waking life. Fear is one of the most common emotions in dreams. Many people have experienced the overwhelming terror of a nightmare, that sense of dread and fear that can jolt you awake with your heart pounding. But dreams can also evoke profound joy, deep sadness, intense anger, overwhelming confusion, and complex emotional mixtures that are hard to describe. These emotions aren't fake or simulated. They're real emotional responses generated by your brain, just triggered by imaginary rather than real situations. Studies analyzing large collections of dream reports have found that negative emotions appear more frequently in dreams than positive ones. Fear, anxiety, confusion, and sadness show up more often than happiness, joy, or contentment. This negativity bias in dreams is interesting and might relate to the threat simulation theory mentioned earlier, or it might reflect that our emotional systems are more easily activated by negative than positive stimuli. However, positive emotions certainly do occur in dreams, and when they do, they can be just as intense as negative ones. Some people report that the most profoundly joyful or peaceful experiences they've ever had occurred in dreams. The social nature of dreams is another fascinating aspect. Most dreams involve other people. When researchers analyze dream reports, they find that the majority include at least one other character besides the dreamer, and many include multiple characters. These dream characters can be people you know, strangers, or sometimes ambiguous figures where you're not sure who they are. Interestingly, the dream characters you interact with often behave in ways that surprise you, saying and doing things you didn't expect. This is curious because everything in the dream is generated by your own brain. You're essentially talking to yourself, yet the conversation can surprise you. Dream characters sometimes reveal information you didn't consciously know you knew, solve problems for you, or say things that provide insights. It's as if different parts of your brain, parts that aren't normally accessible to your conscious awareness, can manifest as separate characters in dreams. The setting of dreams also shows interesting patterns. While dreams can take place anywhere, certain types of locations appear more frequently than others. Houses and buildings are very common dream settings. Often the dream house is a strange hybrid, containing elements from different places you've lived or know. Transportation settings, like cars, trains, or airplanes, also appear frequently, perhaps because they're metaphorically related to life journeys and transitions. Outdoor settings like forests, beaches, or mountains are common. Workplaces and schools appear regularly, especially in the dreams of people who spend a lot of their waking time in these environments. Completely fantastical settings that don't resemble any real place are less common than you might expect. Most dreams are set in places that are at least loosely based on real locations, even if the details are wrong or impossible. One of the most fascinating phenomena related to dreams is lucid dreaming, which occurs when you become aware that you're dreaming while the dream is still happening. In a normal dream, you accept the dream reality completely. You don't question the impossible events or realize that you're asleep. But in a lucid dream, something shifts, and you suddenly recognize that you're dreaming. This recognition can happen in different ways. Sometimes a particularly bizarre event makes you suspicious, and you realize it must be a dream. Sometimes you spontaneously just know you're dreaming without any particular trigger. Once you become lucid, once you're aware that you're in a dream, remarkable things can happen. Many people report that when they become lucid in a dream, they can exert some degree of control over the dream content. You might decide to fly and then find yourself able to do so. You might conjure up a person you want to talk to and they appear. You might change the dream's scenery, alter events, or do things that would be impossible in waking life. The degree of control varies. Some lucid dreamers report having complete control over their dreams, able to shape them however they wish. Others report that lucid awareness brings only limited control, that the dream still unfolds largely on its own, but they have some influence. Even without control, simply being aware that you're dreaming while experiencing the dream is a remarkable state of consciousness, like being awake and asleep simultaneously. Lucid dreaming has been scientifically verified in laboratory settings. The challenge for researchers studying lucid dreams was figuring out how to determine objectively whether someone really was conscious during a dream. After all, the person is asleep, so you can't just ask them. The solution came from the discovery that eye movements are not paralyzed during REM sleep. Researchers worked with experienced lucid dreamers and arranged a signal. Before going to sleep, the lucid dreamer and the researcher would agree on a specific pattern of eye movements, like looking left, right twice in quick succession. This is a pattern that wouldn't occur randomly. The lucid dreamer would be instructed that when they became lucid in a dream, they should make this agreed-upon eye movement pattern. The results were remarkable. Experienced lucid dreamers were indeed able to become lucid during REM sleep, and then perform the pre-arranged eye movement signal, which could be detected by the equipment monitoring their eyes. This provided clear, objective evidence that lucid dreaming is real, that people really can become conscious during dreams and can even communicate with the outside world through eye movements. Subsequent research using this technique has allowed scientists to ask lucid dreamers to perform specific tasks while dreaming and to study what happens in the brain during lucid dreams. Brain imaging studies have found that when people become lucid, there's increased activity in the prefrontal cortex compared to normal dreaming. This makes sense because the prefrontal cortex is involved in self-awareness and metacognition, thinking about your own thoughts. Becoming aware that you're dreaming requires these higher-level cognitive functions that are normally suppressed during REM sleep. While some people have lucid dreams spontaneously without trying, many people are interested in learning how to have them deliberately. Research has identified several techniques that can increase the frequency of lucid dreams. One approach is reality testing during waking. This involves regularly checking during the day whether you're awake or dreaming by looking for signs that would indicate you're in a dream. You might try to push your finger through your palm, which obviously wouldn't work when awake but might work in a dream. Or you might check whether text stays stable when you look away and look back, since text often changes in dreams. The idea is that if you make this a habit during waking, you'll also do it in a dream. And when the reality test fails, you'll realize you're dreaming. Another technique is called mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, or MILD. This involves waking up after a period of sleep, ideally after 5 or 6 hours, and then while falling back asleep, repeatedly telling yourself that you will recognize when you're dreaming. You imagine yourself becoming lucid in a recent dream, rehearsing the moment of recognition. Studies have found that this technique can significantly increase the frequency of lucid dreams, especially when combined with waking up during the night when REM sleep is most intense. Other approaches involve using external cues during sleep, like flashing lights or sounds that might be incorporated into the dream and serve as a signal that you're dreaming. There's growing interest in lucid dreaming both for recreational purposes and for potential therapeutic applications. Some people enjoy lucid dreaming simply because it allows them to have experiences that would be impossible in waking life. You can fly, explore fantastical worlds, have adventures, or meet with people who are no longer alive. Others are interested in using lucid dreams for creative inspiration or problem solving, deliberately working on challenges in the dream state. There's also research into using lucid dreaming to help with nightmares. If someone who suffers from recurring nightmares can learn to become lucid during the nightmare, they might be able to change the dream content or at least reduce their fear by remembering that it's just a dream. Some preliminary studies suggest this approach can be helpful for people with PTSD and nightmare disorder. However, lucid dreaming isn't without potential downsides. Some people report that frequent lucid dreaming can make their sleep feel less restful, perhaps because maintaining awareness during dreams requires more cognitive effort than normal dreaming. There are also occasional reports of difficulty distinguishing waking life from dreams when lucid dreaming becomes very frequent, though this seems to be rare. And some people simply prefer the spontaneous, surprising nature of normal dreams to the more controlled experience of lucid dreams. But for those interested in exploring consciousness and experiencing the remarkable phenomenon of being awake in your dreams, lucid dreaming represents a fascinating frontier. Now let's talk about nightmares, those disturbing dreams that can wake you up feeling frightened or upset. Almost everyone has experienced nightmares at some point. In fact, nightmares are especially common in children, with most children experiencing frequent nightmares during certain developmental periods. The content of nightmares varies widely, but certain themes appear frequently. Being chased or attacked is one of the most common nightmare themes. Falling is another frequent nightmare scenario. Nightmares about losing someone you love, about being in danger, about catastrophic events, or about failing at something important are all relatively common. What makes a nightmare different from just an unpleasant or scary dream is usually the intensity of the negative emotion and the fact that the emotion is strong enough to wake you up. True nightmares typically occur during REM sleep, when dreaming is most vivid and emotions are most intense. You wake up from a nightmare with your heart racing, often feeling genuine fear or distress that can linger for minutes or even longer. The content of the nightmare can seem silly or illogical once you're fully awake, but the emotions were completely real while you were experiencing it. Occasional nightmares are completely normal and not a cause for concern. They might be triggered by stress, by watching or reading something frightening before bed, by eating certain foods that disrupt sleep, or by changes in sleep schedule. Anxiety and stress are particularly likely to increase nightmare frequency. When you're worried about something in your waking life, those worries can manifest in your dreams as nightmare scenarios. The specific content usually isn't a literal representation of what you're worried about, but the underlying emotional tone of anxiety and fear carries over from waking concerns into dream content. However, frequent nightmares that significantly disrupt sleep or cause distress during waking hours can indicate a more serious problem. Nightmare disorder is a recognized sleep disorder characterized by repeated nightmares that wake you up and cause significant impairment in your daily life. This is different from occasional bad dreams. People with nightmare disorder might have nightmares several times a week or even every night, and the nightmares can lead to fear of going to sleep, insomnia, and daytime fatigue and mood problems. Nightmare disorder often co-occurs with other mental health conditions, particularly anxiety disorders, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD is particularly associated with nightmares. People who have experienced severe trauma often have recurring nightmares related to the traumatic event. These trauma nightmares can be extremely distressing and can persist for years or even decades after the original trauma. Unlike typical nightmares, which usually involve fantastical or exaggerated scenarios, trauma nightmares often involve fairly realistic replays or variations of the actual traumatic event. A combat veteran might repeatedly dream about being in battle. Someone who survived a car accident might have recurring dreams about crashes. A person who was assaulted might have nightmares about being attacked. These nightmares can be so distressing that they contribute to the insomnia and sleep disturbance that are characteristic symptoms of PTSD. Treatment for nightmare disorder has advanced significantly in recent years. One effective approach is called imagery rehearsal therapy. This involves writing down a recurring nightmare, then changing the story while awake to give it a less frightening ending, or to change disturbing elements. You then rehearse this new version of the dream in your imagination while awake, going through it multiple times. The idea is that by rehearsing a modified version of the nightmare during waking, you can change the content of the actual dream when it occurs during sleep. Research has shown that this technique can significantly reduce nightmare frequency and intensity for many people, including those with PTSD-related nightmares. There are also medications that can help reduce nightmares, particularly a blood pressure medication called prazosin, which seems to reduce the intensity of nightmares in some people with PTSD. A related phenomenon that's often confused with nightmares is sleep paralysis. This is a strange and often terrifying experience where you wake up but find yourself unable to move. You're conscious, you can see and hear, but your body is completely paralyzed. Remember that during REM sleep, your muscles are normally paralyzed to prevent you from acting out dreams. Sleep paralysis happens when you wake up before this paralysis has ended. Your mind is awake, but your body is still in the paralyzed state of REM sleep. The experience usually lasts only a few seconds to a couple of minutes, but those moments can feel much longer and can be extremely frightening, especially if you don't know what's happening. Sleep paralysis often includes other disturbing features besides the paralysis itself. Many people report a feeling of pressure on their chest, as if someone or something is sitting on them. There's often a sense of presence in the room, a feeling that someone or something is there watching you. Some people have vivid hallucinations during sleep paralysis, seeing shadowy figures, feeling like they're being held down, or sensing malevolent presences. These hallucinations are likely dream elements bleeding into waking consciousness, occurring because you're in a transitional state between sleep and wakefulness. Cultures around the world have folklore about sleep paralysis, often interpreting it as being attacked by demons, ghosts, or evil spirits. The old hag in Newfoundland folklore, the succubus and incubus of European tradition, and various cultural demons and spirits are likely explanations for sleep paralysis experiences that people had before the phenomenon was understood scientifically. Sleep paralysis is actually quite common. Surveys suggest that somewhere between 20 and 40% of people experience sleep paralysis at least once in their lifetime. It's more likely to occur when you're sleep deprived, when your sleep schedule is irregular, or when you sleep on your back. It's also more common in people with narcolepsy, a sleep disorder characterized by excessive daytime sleepiness and disrupted nighttime sleep. For most people, sleep paralysis is rare and, while frightening, is harmless. Understanding what it is and knowing that it will pass quickly can make the experience less terrifying if it happens. If sleep paralysis becomes frequent, it might indicate an underlying sleep disorder that should be evaluated by a sleep specialist. Another interesting dream-related phenomenon is the false awakening, where you dream that you've woken up. You might dream that you get out of bed, start your morning routine, get dressed, eat breakfast, and then suddenly actually wake up and realize you're still in bed and haven't done any of those things. False awakenings can be confusing and frustrating, especially if they happen repeatedly in the same night. You dream you wake up, realize you're still dreaming, then dream that you wake up again, over and over. These experiences can sometimes lead to a disorienting uncertainty about whether you're actually awake or still dreaming. False awakenings appear to be more common in people who are interested in lucid dreaming and who practice reality checks, perhaps because their brains are more focused on the question of whether they're awake or asleep. Let's talk about some of the common themes that appear in dreams across different people and cultures. Despite the fact that dreams are highly personal and incorporate individual memories and experiences, research has found that certain dream themes are nearly universal. Being chased is one of the most common dream themes reported across cultures. Falling is another nearly universal dream experience. Dreams about flying are very common, though interestingly, they're more often reported as positive experiences than negative ones. Many people report that flying dreams are among their most enjoyable dream experiences, giving them a sense of freedom and exhilaration. Dreams about being back in school are extremely common among adults, even those who finished school decades ago. These dreams often involve discovering that you have an exam you didn't study for, or finding out that you're missing a class you need to graduate, or showing up to school unprepared in some way. Dreams about losing teeth are reported frequently across different cultures, though their meaning or significance is debated. Dreams about being naked or inappropriately dressed in public are also common, typically associated with feelings of vulnerability or embarrassment. Dreams about discovering new rooms in your house or familiar building are frequently reported and often described as positive or exciting experiences. These common themes might arise because they relate to universal human concerns and emotions. Being chased might relate to anxiety about threats or avoiding something. Falling might connect to fears of losing control or failing. Flying might represent desires for freedom or transcending limitations. School dreams might reflect anxiety about performance and evaluation, concerns that remain relevant even long after formal schooling ends. The specific interpretation of these common themes varies depending on the theoretical perspective you take, but their universality suggests they're tapping into something fundamental about human psychology and experience. The question of whether dreams have symbolic meanings has fascinated people for millennia and remains controversial in modern psychology. Sigmund Freud famously proposed that dreams were the royal road to the unconscious, and that they contained disguised wishes and repressed desires. According to Freud, the manifest content of a dream, what you actually remember and can describe, is a censored symbolic version of the latent content, the true unconscious wishes and thoughts that the dream represents. Freud believed that through careful analysis of dream symbols, you could uncover these hidden meanings. For example, he infamously suggested that elongated objects in dreams might symbolize sexual content, that entering enclosed spaces might represent sexual wishes, and so on. Modern psychology has largely moved away from Freud's specific theories about dream symbolism, which are seen as unfalsifiable and overly focused on sexual content. However, the broader idea that dreams might reflect our unconscious thoughts, concerns, and emotions in symbolic or metaphorical ways has persisted. Contemporary dream researchers tend to take a more moderate position. Dreams likely don't contain hidden messages that need to be decoded using a universal symbol dictionary. The meaning of symbols in dreams, if they are symbolic, would be personal to the individual dreamer and related to their own experiences and associations. A dog in someone's dream might represent loyalty, or it might represent a childhood pet, or it might represent fear if the person was once bitten by a dog, or it might just be a dog with no particular symbolic significance. More broadly, dreams do seem to reflect the dreamer's emotional concerns and preoccupations, though not necessarily in straightforward ways. If you're stressed about a relationship, you might have dreams involving conflict or separation, but not necessarily with the actual person you're concerned about. If you're anxious about your competence at work, you might have dreams about failing at various tasks, though not necessarily work tasks. Dreams take the emotional themes from your waking life and express them through different content. This isn't symbolism in the Freudian sense of one thing secretly representing another. It's more that your emotional state influences the tone and themes of your dreams, and your current concerns make certain types of dream content more likely. There are cultural and historical approaches to dream interpretation that take dreams very seriously as sources of meaning and guidance. Carl Jung, a contemporary of Freud who broke away to develop his own theories, believed that dreams could provide valuable insights into the unconscious mind, but he saw them differently than Freud. Jung believed dreams could contain messages from the unconscious that were trying to help balance and guide the conscious mind. He paid attention to archetypal symbols that appeared across cultures and believed dreams could put people in touch with deep, universal aspects of the human psyche. While Jung's theories are influential in some circles, they're difficult to test scientifically and are not widely accepted in contemporary neuroscience and psychology research. Whether or not dreams have deep symbolic meaning, many people find personal value in thinking about and reflecting on their dreams. Even if dreams don't contain coded messages, they do provide a different perspective on your thoughts and feelings. The creative, uncensored nature of dreams can bring up connections and ideas that you might not access through normal waking thought. Some people keep dream journals, writing down their dreams upon waking, and find that this practice helps them understand their own emotional patterns and concerns better. Whether this works because dreams really contain important meanings, or simply because any form of self-reflection can be valuable, is an open question. But the subjective experience of gaining insight from dreams is real for many people. Now let's discuss the relationship between dreams and external stimuli. Dreams feel like they're happening in a completely internal world, disconnected from external reality, and to a large extent that's true. During sleep, your sensory systems are dampened, and you're much less responsive to what's happening around you. However, external stimuli can sometimes make their way into dreams. If a sound occurs while you're dreaming, it might get incorporated into the dream narrative. An alarm clock might become a phone ringing in your dream. Someone talking in the next room might become a conversation with a dream character. The sensation of needing to urinate might become a dream about searching for a bathroom. Temperature changes can influence dream content. Being too hot or too cold can lead to dreams involving heat or cold. Classic experiments have shown that external stimuli can be woven into ongoing dreams without waking the sleeper. Researchers have sprayed water on sleeping participants' faces and found that they reported dreams involving water or rain when awakened. Shining a light on closed eyelids during REM sleep led to reports of bright lights, fire, or sunshine in dreams. Playing sounds during sleep can influence dream content, with the sounds being interpreted and integrated into the dream narrative in creative ways. However, this incorporation of external stimuli into dreams is not reliable or predictable. The same stimulus might wake you up one time and get incorporated into a dream another time, depending on your sleep stage and how deeply you're sleeping. This ability of external stimuli to influence dreams has led to attempts to communicate with dreaming people or to influence dream content deliberately. Some researchers have explored whether you could give people pleasant dreams by exposing them to pleasant smells during sleep, or whether you could cue memories during sleep to enhance learning. Results have been mixed. External stimulation during sleep can influence dream content to some degree, but the effect is unpredictable, and often the stimulation just disrupts sleep rather than shaping dreams in useful ways. More promising are techniques that work with the dreamer's intention before sleep. If you decide before falling asleep that you want to dream about a particular topic or solve a particular problem, you're somewhat more likely to have dreams related to that content, a phenomenon called dream incubation. The timing of dreams throughout the night follows a predictable pattern related to the sleep cycle. When you first fall asleep, you have little to no REM sleep, so there's minimal vivid dreaming. As the night progresses, REM periods get longer and more frequent. By the early morning hours, you might spend 30 to 45 minutes in REM sleep during each cycle. This is why the dreams you have right before waking are often the longest, most complex, and most memorable. It's also why, if you sleep longer than usual, extending your sleep beyond your normal wake time, you tend to have more vivid dreams. You're giving yourself more time in those extended morning REM periods where dreams are at their most intense. This pattern also explains why the dreams you remember best are usually the ones from right before you wake up. There are several reasons you tend to remember these late-night dreams better than earlier ones. First, they're more vivid and complex, so there's more to remember. Second, they're more recent, so there's been less time for the memory to fade. Third, and perhaps most importantly, you're more likely to wake directly from REM sleep in the morning, and you're much more likely to remember a dream if you wake up directly from it. When you wake up from REM sleep, the dream is right there in your mind, and if you think about it immediately, you can often remember it in considerable detail. But if you don't rehearse it right away, if you get distracted by turning off your alarm or thinking about the day ahead, the dream memory fades remarkably quickly. This rapid forgetting of dreams is one of their most frustrating features for people who are interested in their dreams. You might wake up with a vivid, complex dream fresh in your mind, full of interesting details and strange events, and if you lie there thinking about it, you can remember it quite clearly. But if you get up and start your morning routine without rehearsing the dream, within minutes it can fade to almost nothing. By the time you're having breakfast, you might remember that you had an interesting dream, but be unable to recall what it was about. By afternoon, even the knowledge that you dreamed might be gone. This dramatic forgetting is unusual compared to waking memories. If something interesting happens to you during the day, you don't usually forget it within minutes. So why are dreams so easily forgotten? Several factors contribute to dream amnesia. One factor is simply the state of your brain during REM sleep. The neurochemical environment during REM sleep is different from waking. In particular, there are lower levels of neurotransmitters, like norepinephrine and serotonin during REM sleep, and these neurotransmitters play important roles in forming stable long-term memories. The brain during REM sleep might simply be in a state where forming durable memories is more difficult. Another factor is that when you wake up, you transition to a completely different brain state. The patterns of neural activity, the neurochemical environment, and the overall functioning of your brain shift dramatically from REM sleep to waking. This shift in brain state might make it difficult to access memories that were formed in the very different state of REM sleep. It's like the dream memories are stored in a format that's not easily accessible from the waking state. There's also the simple fact that dreams are usually not rehearsed or thought about after they occur. In waking life, when something important or interesting happens, you tend to think about it afterward, talk about it, remember it multiple times. This rehearsal strengthens the memory. But most dreams are never rehearsed. You wake up, the dream vanishes from your thoughts, and you never think about it again. Without this rehearsal, the memory trace fades quickly. People who keep dream journals and make a practice of writing down their dreams immediately upon waking report that this practice helps them remember not just the dreams they write down, but dreams in general. They seem to get better at forming and retaining dream memories, perhaps because they're rehearsing dream recall as a skill. Despite this general forgetting, some dreams are remembered vividly for years or even a lifetime. Most people can recall at least a few dreams from their childhood or from years past that remain clear in memory. These highly memorable dreams often have certain characteristics. They tend to be emotionally intense, either very frightening or very positive. They often occur during significant life transitions or periods of stress. They might have particularly bizarre or striking imagery that makes them stand out. And crucially, they were probably thought about and remembered multiple times after they occurred, strengthening the memory through rehearsal. A nightmare that terrified you as a child might be remembered decades later because you thought about it and perhaps talked about it many times, each rehearsal strengthening the memory trace. For people who want to remember their dreams better, researchers have identified several strategies that can help. The most effective is keeping a dream journal. Place a notebook next to your bed and make it a habit to write down whatever you remember of your dreams as soon as you wake up, before doing anything else. Even if you only remember fragments, write those down. Over time, this practice tends to increase dream recall significantly. Setting an intention before sleep can also help. Before falling asleep, tell yourself that you want to remember your dreams. This simple act of intention seems to make it more likely that you'll wake with dream memories accessible. Waking up naturally without an alarm allows you to wake from whatever sleep stage you're in, which is more likely to be REM sleep in the morning hours, and waking from REM sleep makes dream recall more likely. Another factor that affects dream recall is simply how much you sleep and the quality of that sleep. If you're sleep deprived, you might actually get more REM sleep than usual when you do sleep, as your brain tries to catch up on missed REM sleep, a phenomenon called REM rebound. This can lead to more intense dreams. But chronic sleep deprivation and poor sleep quality can actually reduce dream recall overall, possibly because the sleep you're getting is fragmented and doesn't include long, undisturbed periods of REM sleep. Certain substances also affect dream recall. Alcohol, for example, suppresses REM sleep, especially in the first half of the night, which can reduce dreaming and dream recall. However, as the alcohol wears off later in the night, there's often a REM rebound with intense dreams. Marijuana also affects REM sleep and dreaming, typically reducing dream recall during regular use. But when heavy users stop using marijuana, They often experience extremely vivid dreams as REM sleep rebounds. Some medications affect dreaming as well. Antidepressants, particularly SSRIs, can suppress REM sleep and reduce dreaming or dream recall. Beta blockers, used to treat high blood pressure and anxiety, can increase nightmares in some people. Some blood pressure medications can cause vivid dreams. If you're taking medication and notice changes in your dreams, whether more vivid dreams, more nightmares, or loss of dream recall, it's worth discussing with your doctor, as this is a known side effect of various medications. In most cases, the effect is not harmful, but it can be disturbing if you don't know what's causing it. Age has a significant effect on dreams and sleep patterns. Newborn babies spend an astonishing amount of time in REM sleep, up to 8 hours per day, which is about half of their total sleep time. As children grow, the amount of REM sleep decreases, though it remains higher than adult levels throughout childhood. By adulthood, most people spend about 2 hours per night in REM sleep, roughly 20 to 25% of total sleep time. In old age, REM sleep tends to decrease further, and sleep becomes more fragmented overall. These changes in REM sleep across the lifespan likely reflect changing developmental needs. The infant brain is developing at an incredible rate, forming millions of neural connections, and the high amount of REM sleep might support this rapid brain development. The content of dreams also changes across the lifespan. Young children's dreams tend to be simpler and more static than adult dreams. A preschool-age child might report a dream about seeing an animal or being in a familiar place, but without much narrative or action. As children get older, their dreams become more complex, with more characters, more social interaction, and more developed storylines. By around age 7 or 8, children's dreams start to resemble adult dreams in structure and complexity. Children's dreams often feature animals more prominently than adult dreams do, and the animals are often large or threatening, like bears, lions, dinosaurs, or monsters. As children move into adolescence, their dreams increasingly feature themselves as active participants and include more social interactions, reflecting their developing sense of self and increasing complexity of social relationships. Adult dreams show certain consistent patterns. They typically feature the dreamer as an active participant doing things rather than just observing. They include multiple characters, most often people the dreamer knows, though strangers and ambiguous figures also appear. They usually involve some kind of narrative or sequence of events rather than being static scenes. They incorporate a mixture of familiar and unfamiliar settings, and they tend to include at least some bizarre or impossible elements, though the degree of bizarreness varies considerably from dream to dream. Some dreams are relatively realistic and could almost be memories of real events, while others are wildly fantastical with impossible events and transformations. In older adulthood, dreams may become somewhat less vivid and bizarre on average, though this varies considerably between individuals. Older adults often report dreaming about their younger years, with people and places from decades past appearing in dreams. This might reflect that the strongest and most emotionally significant memories, which often come from young adulthood, remain prominent in the memory systems that feed into dream generation. However, older adults also dream about current concerns and recent events, so dreams continue to reflect both past and present throughout life. There are some interesting gender differences in dream content, though it's important to note that these are statistical trends with lots of individual variation. Research analyzing large collections of dream reports has found that men's dreams tend to include more male characters than female characters, while women's dreams tend to have a more equal balance of male and female characters. Men's dreams show slightly more aggression and physical activity on average. Women's dreams tend to include more emotion-focused content and more emphasis on relationships. Women also tend to report dreams in more detail and remember dreams more frequently than men. Though again, this is a statistical trend with lots of overlap between individuals. These differences might reflect socialization, different social experiences and concerns between men and women, or possibly some biological factors related to hormones or brain structure, but the research doesn't allow us to make definitive claims about causes. One fascinating question is whether people who are blind from birth experience visual imagery in their dreams, and the answer appears to be no. People who have never had vision don't report visual experiences in their dreams. However, they absolutely do dream, and their dreams are rich sensory experiences involving hearing, touch, taste, smell, and spatial awareness. They dream about navigating through spaces, touching objects, having conversations, and experiencing various sensations, all without visual imagery. Their dreams are vivid and realistic to them, even though they lack the visual component that sighted people consider central to dreaming. People who had vision earlier in life but lost it later tend to continue having visual dreams, drawing on their visual memories from before they lost their sight. How long visual imagery persists in dreams after losing sight seems to depend on the age at which vision was lost. Those who lose vision in early childhood may eventually stop having visual dreams, while those who lose vision as adults often continue to have visual dreams for the rest of their lives. Similarly, people who are deaf often report that their dreams include sign language, if that's their primary mode of communication. They might dream about having conversations in sign language, and these dream conversations feel as natural as spoken conversation does in the dreams of hearing people. This demonstrates that dreams aren't fundamentally about specific sensory modalities, but rather about the brain creating simulated experiences using whatever forms of representation it has available. Your dreams use your available senses and your normal modes of experiencing and communicating in the world, whatever those might be. Another interesting question is whether animals dream, and the answer appears to be yes, at least for mammals and possibly birds. Animals show REM sleep with the same characteristics as human REM sleep, including rapid eye movements, muscle paralysis, and brain activity patterns similar to waking. When you watch a dog or cat sleeping, you can sometimes see their eyes moving under their eyelids, their whiskers or paws twitching, and occasionally hear them making sounds. These signs suggest they're in REM sleep and quite possibly dreaming. Famous experiments with cats in the 1960s involved disabling the mechanism that causes muscle paralysis during REM sleep. When this was done, sleeping cats would get up and appear to enact hunting and stalking behaviors, walking around, pouncing on invisible prey, all while still asleep. This suggests they were acting out dreams about hunting, much like people with REM sleep behavior disorder act out their dreams. Studies with rats have provided even more compelling evidence for animal dreaming. Researchers recorded the activity of individual neurons in the hippocampus of rats while the rats learned to navigate mazes. Each place in the maze corresponded to a characteristic pattern of neural firing. Then, when the rats slept, the researchers recorded from the same neurons and found that the exact same patterns that occurred during maze navigation would replay during sleep. Even more remarkably, by analyzing these patterns, researchers could determine what location in the maze the rat was dreaming about at any given moment during sleep. The rat's brain was replaying its experiences of navigating the maze, presumably consolidating the spatial memories it had formed. While we can't ask the rat whether it was consciously experiencing anything that felt like a dream, the neural evidence suggests something very much like dreaming is occurring. The evolutionary purpose of dreaming is still debated, but the fact that REM sleep and apparent dreaming are found throughout mammals suggests it evolved early in mammalian history and serves important functions. Birds also show a state similar to REM sleep, though it's briefer and shows some differences from mammalian REM sleep. Reptiles, amphibians, and fish show sleep-like states, but don't clearly show the distinctive features of REM sleep. This suggests that REM sleep evolved with warm-blooded animals, perhaps related to the more complex cognitive and memory processing required by these animals, or possibly related to the extended period of brain development that mammals undergo. Cultural differences in how dreams are viewed and discussed are substantial. Western culture, particularly in modern times, tends to view dreams as private, internal experiences with little significance beyond possible psychological meaning. Most people don't talk about their dreams routinely, and dreams are not generally considered important for making decisions or understanding the world. This stands in stark contrast to many traditional and indigenous cultures, where dreams are taken very seriously and discussed openly. In some cultures, the morning routine includes sharing dreams with family members, and dreams are considered important for social relationships, personal guidance, and spiritual life. The content of dreams shows some cultural variation as well. While certain dream themes like being chased, falling, or flying appear across cultures, other aspects of dream content are influenced by cultural context. People dream about things that are part of their cultural experience and use cultural symbols and narratives in their dreams. The settings, the social interactions, the concerns and conflicts that appear in dreams all reflect the dreamer's cultural background. There's also evidence that the bizarreness of dreams might vary somewhat across cultures, with people from Western cultures tending to report more bizarre and unrealistic dreams than people from some other cultural backgrounds, though the reasons for this are not clear. One persistent belief about dreams that appears across many cultures is that dreams can be prophetic, that they can predict or reveal future events. Throughout history, there are countless stories of people who reportedly had dreams that came true. In ancient times, important decisions, including military and political choices, were sometimes based on dreams believed to be prophetic. Even today, many people have had the experience of dreaming about something and then having it happen, which can feel uncanny and meaningful. So is there anything to the idea that dreams can predict the future? The scientific consensus is that dreams do not have genuine precognitive abilities. There are several reasons why dreams can seem to predict the future, even though they don't actually do so. First, you dream a lot, covering an enormous range of content over a lifetime. With thousands of dreams containing countless events and scenarios, some of them are bound to coincidentally match future events just by chance. Second, you tend to remember the hits and forget the misses. When a dream seems to come true, it feels striking and you remember it. The thousands of dreams that didn't match future events are forgotten. This creates a biased memory where prophetic dreams seem more common than they actually are. Third, dreams often reflect your concerns and expectations about the future, so they're more likely to be about things that might plausibly happen. If you're worried about an upcoming job interview, you might dream about it going badly, and if it does go badly, it can feel like the dream predicted it, when really the dream just reflected your anxiety about a likely possibility. Fourth, dreams are often vague and symbolic enough that they can be retroactively interpreted to match events. If you dream about water and then have a plumbing problem, you might think the dream predicted it, even though water appears in dreams frequently for many reasons, and plumbing problems are not uncommon. This is similar to how horoscopes and psychic predictions work, through vague statements that can be interpreted to match many different events. Related to prophetic dreams is the phenomenon of déjà vu, that strange feeling that you've experienced something before even though you know you haven't. Some people believe that déjà vu occurs because they dreamed about the situation previously and then forgot the dream, so when they encounter the situation in waking life, it feels familiar because they unconsciously remember the dream. However, research on déjà vu suggests it's more likely a glitch in the brain's memory systems. Déjà vu seems to occur when your brain's familiarity detection system misfires, creating a feeling of familiarity for something you're experiencing for the first time. It's an interesting subjective experience, but doesn't appear to be related to actually having dreamed about the situation previously. Some dreams do seem to provide genuine insights or solutions to problems, and there are well-documented cases of people making discoveries or having creative breakthroughs that originated in dreams. Earlier, we mentioned examples like Kekule's dream about the structure of benzene, or Howe's dream about the sewing machine needle. While these specific stories might be somewhat embellished, There are enough similar accounts to suggest that dreams can sometimes contribute to creative problem-solving and insights. This isn't because dreams predict the future or contain mystical knowledge, but rather because dreams allow the brain to make unusual connections and approach problems from different angles than waking thought permits. If you go to bed thinking about a problem, your brain continues working on it during sleep. The unique brain state of REM sleep, with high activation in visual and associative areas and reduced logical constraints, might allow novel solutions to emerge that wouldn't occur through normal waking thought processes. The insights that emerge from dreams aren't magical, they're the result of your own brain's problem-solving processes operating in a different mode. But the results can feel magical, because the solution appears suddenly, without the conscious effort and logical steps that normally characterize problem-solving during waking. Recurring dreams are dreams that repeat, either with identical or very similar content, multiple times over months or even years. Most people have experienced a recurring dream at some point in their lives. These dreams often start during childhood or adolescence and might continue into adulthood. The content of recurring dreams is often unpleasant or at least involves some kind of challenge or difficulty, though pleasant recurring dreams do occur as well. Common themes for recurring dreams include being chased, being lost or unable to find something important, being unprepared for an exam or performance, or being in a dangerous situation. The meaning and cause of recurring dreams is debated. One perspective is that recurring dreams reflect unresolved psychological conflicts or concerns. The dream keeps repeating because the underlying issue hasn't been addressed. According to this view, if you can figure out what the dream is about psychologically and address that issue in your waking life, the recurring dream should stop. Some people report that their recurring dreams did indeed stop after they made changes in their lives or resolved certain problems, though it's hard to know whether this is causal or coincidental. Another perspective is that recurring dreams simply reflect the brain's tendency to fall into habitual patterns. Once a particular dream has occurred and been remembered, it might be more likely to occur again simply because those neural patterns have been activated before. An interesting feature of many recurring dreams is that they evolve over time. The dream might stay largely the same but with variations in the details, or it might gradually change in character. Some people report that a frightening recurring dream gradually became less threatening over time, or that they eventually started confronting the threat instead of fleeing from it, and then the dream stopped recurring. This evolution might reflect changes in how you're dealing with whatever psychological issues or concerns the dream relates to, though again, it's difficult to make definitive claims about causation. False awakenings, which we touched on earlier, can sometimes become recurring. Some people repeatedly have dreams where they think they've woken up and started their day, only to actually wake up and realize it was a dream. This can happen multiple times in the same night, creating nested layers of false awakening that can be deeply confusing. While occasional false awakenings are common and harmless, frequent false awakenings can be distressing and might indicate that you're sleeping poorly or experiencing some kind of sleep disruption that's causing you to partially wake and then fall back into dreaming repeatedly. The question of whether you can control what you dream about, apart from lucid dreaming, is interesting. As mentioned earlier, dream incubation, where you decide before falling asleep what you want to dream about, can have some effect. If you spend time before bed thinking about a particular topic, looking at pictures related to that topic, or imagining dreaming about it, you're somewhat more likely to have dreams related to that content. However, the effect is unpredictable, and you certainly can't precisely control dream content the way you can control your thoughts when awake. Dreams are generated largely by unconscious processes that aren't under direct voluntary control. What you can influence is what experiences and content go into your mind during waking hours, which then becomes available to be incorporated into dreams. If you watch a frightening movie before bed, you're more likely to have frightening dreams that night. If you spend the evening having pleasant experiences and thinking about positive things, your dreams might be more pleasant. If you're dealing with a particular problem or concern, it's likely to show up in your dreams in some form. So while you can't directly control dreams, you can indirectly influence them by managing what you think about and experience during the day, and especially in the hours before sleep. Sleep hygiene, the practices that promote good sleep, can also affect dreaming. Good sleep hygiene includes maintaining a regular sleep schedule, creating a comfortable sleep environment, avoiding caffeine and alcohol close to bedtime, not using screens for an hour before bed, and having a relaxing pre-sleep routine. These practices promote deeper, more continuous sleep with proper cycling through sleep stages, which in turn supports healthy dreaming. Poor sleep hygiene leads to fragmented, disrupted sleep, where you might not get adequate REM sleep, or might have REM sleep at inappropriate times, which can lead to unusual dream experiences or poor dream recall. One factor that significantly affects dreams is stress and anxiety. High levels of stress are associated with more frequent nightmares, more negatively toned dreams, and dreams that incorporate threatening or challenging scenarios. Chronic stress and anxiety disorders are linked to disrupted sleep architecture, which can affect dreaming patterns. However, the relationship goes both ways. Not only does stress affect dreams, but dreams might also affect how you deal with stress. As discussed earlier, REM sleep seems to play a role in processing emotional experiences and regulating stress responses. Getting adequate, good quality sleep with sufficient REM sleep might help you manage stress more effectively, while poor sleep can make stress feel worse. Depression also affects dreaming in characteristic ways. People with depression often report that their dreams are more negatively toned, with more themes involving failure, loss, rejection, or helplessness. They might dream about being criticized, abandoned, or unable to accomplish tasks. Depression is also associated with changes in REM sleep. Some research has found that people with depression enter REM sleep more quickly after falling asleep than non-depressed people and spend more time in REM sleep, a pattern sometimes called REM pressure. Interestingly, REM sleep deprivation can have rapid antidepressant effects in some people with depression, improving mood within hours, though the effect usually doesn't last. This has led to theories about REM sleep possibly playing a role in maintaining depression in some individuals, though the relationships are complex and not fully understood. Medications used to treat depression, particularly SSRIs like fluoxetine or sertraline, significantly suppress REM sleep. People taking these medications often report that they dream less or don't remember dreams. Some research suggests that this REM suppression might be part of how these medications work to alleviate depression, though this is controversial. When people stop taking these medications, especially if they stop abruptly, they often experience intense REM rebound with extremely vivid, sometimes bizarre or disturbing dreams. This is one of many reasons why psychiatric medications should be discontinued gradually under medical supervision rather than stopped suddenly. Post-traumatic stress disorder has a unique relationship with dreams and sleep. As mentioned earlier, trauma-related nightmares are a hallmark symptom of PTSD. These nightmares can be so distressing that people with PTSD often develop fear of sleep and might try to avoid sleeping, leading to chronic sleep deprivation that makes all their symptoms worse. The relationship between trauma, nightmares, and PTSD is complex. Not everyone who experiences trauma develops PTSD, and not everyone with PTSD has nightmares. The nightmares in PTSD seem to represent a failure of the normal emotional processing that should occur during REM sleep. Instead of the traumatic memory being gradually processed and its emotional intensity reduced, the memory keeps returning in nightmares with full emotional force, as if the trauma happened yesterday rather than months or years ago. Treatment for trauma-related nightmares has advanced considerably. Imagery rehearsal therapy, mentioned earlier, has good evidence for effectiveness. Medications can also help reduce nightmare frequency and intensity, and trauma-focused therapies like prolonged exposure therapy or EMDR, which address the traumatic memories themselves, often lead to reduction in nightmares as well. Understanding that the nightmares, while horrible, represent the brain's attempt to process traumatic experiences, can sometimes make them slightly less frightening. They're not random attacks, but rather your mind working through something difficult, even if that processing isn't succeeding in the way it should. Sleep disorders beyond PTSD can also affect dreaming in various ways. Narcolepsy, a condition characterized by excessive daytime sleepiness and sudden sleep attacks, involves disrupted REM sleep regulation. People with narcolepsy often enter REM sleep very quickly when they fall asleep, whereas people without the condition typically don't enter REM sleep until 90 minutes after sleep onset. This means people with narcolepsy often start dreaming immediately upon falling asleep, and they might have dreamlike experiences intruding into waking life, such as vivid hallucinations while falling asleep or waking up. They also commonly experience sleep paralysis because they transition into the paralyzed state of REM sleep very rapidly. Sleepwalking and sleep talking, which occur during non-REM sleep rather than during dreaming REM sleep, are often confused with acting out dreams, but they're actually different phenomena. Sleepwalking typically occurs during deep, slow-wave sleep earlier in the night. People who sleepwalk are not acting out dreams. They're in a state where the brain is partially awake enough to control muscles and navigate, but they remain unconscious and typically don't remember the episode afterward. Sleep talking can occur during any stage of sleep. When it occurs during REM sleep, the things people say might relate to dream content, but most sleep talking occurs during lighter non-REM sleep and consists of brief, often nonsensical utterances rather than coherent speech. Night terrors, which primarily affect children but can occasionally occur in adults, are another non-REM phenomenon often confused with nightmares. Night terrors occur during deep sleep and involve sudden episodes of extreme fear and panic. A child experiencing a night terror might sit up, scream, appear terrified, have a racing heart, and be completely inconsolable, but they're actually still asleep. Unlike nightmares, which occur during REM sleep and are remembered as frightening dreams, night terrors typically aren't remembered afterward. The child wakes up the next morning with no memory of the episode. Night terrors usually decrease with age and don't indicate any psychological problem. They're a benign, if disturbing, sleep phenomenon related to the immature development of the sleep-wake transition systems in young children. Exploding head syndrome is a startling but harmless sleep phenomenon where people hear a loud noise, like an explosion or crash, as they're falling asleep or waking up. There's no actual noise, and it doesn't cause pain, but it can be very alarming, especially the first time it happens. The cause isn't well understood, but it's thought to involve a sudden firing of neurons in the auditory cortex during the transition between sleep and waking. Despite its dramatic name, exploding head syndrome is benign and doesn't indicate any underlying health problem, though it can be disturbing enough to cause anxiety about sleep if you don't know what it is. Hypnagogic and hypnopompic hallucinations are sensory experiences that occur while falling asleep and waking up, respectively. These can be visual, like seeing shapes or figures, auditory, like hearing voices or music, or even tactile, like feeling like someone touched you. They occur in the borderland between sleep and waking, when your brain is transitioning between states. These hallucinations are more common in children but can occur in adults as well, especially when sleep-deprived or under stress. They're related to the dream imagery of REM sleep bleeding into the waking transition. For people who don't know what they are, these hallucinations can be frightening, but they're actually quite common and not a sign of mental illness or any other problem. Let's explore the relationship between creativity and dreams in more detail. Throughout history, artists, writers, musicians, and inventors have reported getting inspiration from their dreams. Beyond the famous examples already mentioned, there are countless stories of creative works that originated in dreams or were significantly influenced by dream experiences. The author Robert Louis Stevenson claimed that the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde came to him in a dream. The surrealist artist Salvador Dali deliberately cultivated a practice of waking himself from early sleep to capture the bizarre imagery from the edge of dreaming. The Beatles song Yesterday famously came to Paul McCartney in a dream, complete with a melody. He woke up and immediately went to a piano to play it before he forgot it. These examples raise interesting questions about the relationship between dreams and creativity. Are creative people more likely to remember their dreams, or do dreams actually enhance creativity? Research suggests both might be true to some extent. Studies have found that people who score higher on measures of creativity tend to report more vivid and bizarre dreams. They also tend to remember their dreams more frequently and in more detail. Whether the dreaming itself makes them more creative, or whether creative people simply pay more attention to their dreams and find them more interesting, is difficult to determine. But there's evidence that REM sleep itself, the state where vivid dreaming occurs, plays a role in creative thinking. Experiments have shown that people perform better on creative tasks after a period of REM sleep compared to either staying awake or sleeping without REM. One study gave people word association problems that required thinking of a word that connected 3 other words in creative ways. After REM sleep, people were significantly better at solving these problems than after non-REM sleep or after staying awake. This suggests that REM sleep does something to the way the brain processes and connects information that enhances the ability to see relationships and make novel connections. This might be because during REM sleep, the brain makes looser, more unusual associations than during waking thought. Most of these associations might be useless or nonsensical, but occasionally they lead to genuine insights. Some researchers have proposed that one function of dreams might be to keep the brain's capacity for creative, imaginative thought active. During waking life, especially in modern society, we spend much of our time engaged in practical, goal-directed, logical thought. We solve specific problems, complete tasks, follow rules and procedures. This type of thinking is necessary and valuable, but it exercises only certain cognitive capacities. Dreams might serve to exercise other capacities, the ability to make unusual connections, to think in metaphors and symbols, to imagine scenarios that don't exist. By regularly engaging these creative thinking modes during dreams, we might be maintaining cognitive flexibility and preventing our thinking from becoming too rigid and constrained. This idea connects to research on the default mode network, a set of brain regions that become active when you're not focused on external tasks, when your mind is wandering or daydreaming. The default mode network is involved in imagination, memory, thinking about the future, and considering other perspectives. Interestingly, some of the brain regions in the default mode network are active during REM sleep, though in different patterns than during waking mind wandering. Dreams might share some cognitive features with daydreaming, that loose, associative, imaginative form of thought that occurs when your mind drifts away from immediate tasks. Both involve the brain generating mental content that isn't directly tied to what's happening in the external environment. The content that appears in dreams can be influenced in interesting ways by your activities before sleep. There's a phenomenon called the Tetris effect, named after studies where people who played the video game Tetris extensively before bed reported dreaming about falling blocks and geometric shapes. This effect isn't limited to Tetris. Any activity that you engage in intensely and repetitively, especially shortly before sleep, can influence your dreams. Medical students studying anatomy might dream about organs and systems. People learning a foreign language might have dreams that incorporate that language. Athletes training intensively might dream about their sport. This incorporation of recent intensive experiences into dreams makes sense, given that one function of sleep is consolidating new learning. Your brain is processing the new information and skills, and that processing shows up in dream content. There's also evidence that if you learn something new during the day and then sleep, the learning gets consolidated during sleep, particularly during REM sleep. But interestingly, not all new memories get equal treatment during sleep consolidation. Memories that are emotionally significant, or that the brain tags as important, are more likely to be consolidated and strengthened during sleep. This selective consolidation makes sense from an efficiency standpoint. Your brain can't possibly remember everything that happens to you. It needs to prioritize what's worth remembering. Sleep, and the dreaming that occurs during sleep, might be part of this prioritization process. strengthening important memories while allowing less important ones to fade. This brings up the question of whether you could use sleep and dreaming to enhance learning deliberately. Could you learn something new right before bed to take advantage of sleep consolidation? Research suggests yes to some extent. Studies have found that people who study material and then sleep soon afterward often remember it better than people who study the same material and then stay awake for an equivalent time. The sleep seems to protect the memory from interference and also actively strengthens it. However, cramming information right before bed and then immediately falling asleep isn't necessarily better than distributed practice during the day. The relationship between learning, sleep, and memory is complex, and simply sleeping after learning doesn't guarantee good memory. The quality of the initial learning matters a lot. There have been attempts to enhance learning during sleep itself by playing information to sleeping people, a technique sometimes called sleep learning or hypnopedia. Early studies suggested that you could learn foreign language vocabulary or factual information by listening to recordings during sleep. However, more careful research has largely debunked these claims. When people appear to learn during sleep, it's usually because they were partially awake during the exposure to the information, not because learning occurred during true sleep. During deep sleep, your brain doesn't process external information in a way that allows new learning. During REM sleep, you're internally focused on dream content and aren't processing external information effectively either. However, more recent research has found that certain forms of simple conditioning can occur during sleep. For example, if you pair a smell with a reward during waking and then expose the person to that smell during sleep, it can strengthen the memory of the association. There's also evidence that playing sounds associated with specific memories during sleep can strengthen those memories. In one study, people learned the locations of objects paired with specific sounds. Then during sleep, some of the sounds were played softly. When people woke up, they remembered the locations better for objects whose associated sounds had been played during sleep. So while you can't learn completely new information during sleep, you might be able to strengthen or reinforce specific memories by cueing them during sleep. Another fascinating area of dream research involves the relationship between dreams and mental health more broadly. We've already discussed how depression, anxiety, and PTSD affect dreams, but the relationship between dreams and mental well-being goes deeper. Some researchers and therapists believe that working with dreams, discussing them, and thinking about what they might reveal about emotional concerns can be therapeutically valuable. This doesn't necessarily mean that dreams have hidden symbolic meanings that need to be decoded. Rather, dreams provide a different perspective on your thoughts and feelings, and reflecting on them can sometimes bring insights that don't emerge through normal waking self-reflection. In some forms of psychotherapy, particularly approaches influenced by Jungian or psychodynamic theories, dream work is an explicit part of the therapeutic process. Clients are encouraged to remember and share their dreams, and therapist and client explore together what the dreams might suggest about the client's emotional life, relationships, and concerns. Even in therapeutic approaches that don't explicitly focus on dreams, clients sometimes bring up dreams that feel significant to them, and these dreams can become useful material for therapeutic discussion. The process isn't about decoding symbols according to a dream dictionary, but rather about using the dream as a starting point for exploring feelings, memories, and issues that might not be easily accessible through direct questioning. Research on whether dream-focused therapy is actually effective is limited, but there's some evidence that for certain issues, working with dreams can be helpful. For nightmares specifically, therapy approaches that involve discussing the nightmares and creating alternative narratives have shown effectiveness, as mentioned earlier with imagery rehearsal therapy. For more general mental health concerns, it's less clear whether dream work adds significant benefit beyond good therapy that doesn't focus on dreams. But many people find dream exploration personally meaningful and report that it helps them understand themselves better. and that subjective value is worth something, even if it's difficult to measure scientifically. The role of culture in shaping attitudes toward dreams can't be overstated. In contemporary Western culture, particularly in scientific and educated circles, there's often a dismissive attitude toward dreams. They're seen as random, meaningless, perhaps interesting as curiosities, but not worthy of serious attention. This stands in stark contrast to many other cultures and historical periods where dreams were taken very seriously. In traditional Aboriginal Australian culture, the dream time is a fundamental concept, a sacred era when ancestral beings created the world, and dreams are seen as a way of connecting with this timeless realm and with ancestral knowledge. Many Native American traditions hold that dreams can provide guidance, warnings, and connection to spiritual realms. The Iroquois people traditionally placed great importance on dreams and had elaborate social practices around sharing dreams and fulfilling dream wishes. In some African cultures, dreams are seen as visits from ancestors or as prophetic messages that should guide important decisions. Islamic tradition includes the concept of true dreams that can come from God, and there are hadith, sayings attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, about dreams and their interpretation. In Hindu tradition, dreams are sometimes seen as experiences of the subtle body during sleep, with different levels of reality corresponding to waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and transcendent consciousness. These different cultural attitudes toward dreams shape not just how people think about dreams, but potentially what people experience in dreams and how they remember and report them. If you grow up in a culture where dreams are regularly discussed and considered important, you'll likely pay more attention to your dreams, remember them more often, and think about them more deeply than someone from a culture where dreams are dismissed as meaningless. This attention could actually change the dreaming experience itself, creating a kind of feedback loop where taking dreams seriously leads to more memorable and perhaps more meaningful dreams, which in turn reinforces the belief that dreams matter. Modern Western culture's tendency to dismiss dreams might be related to the scientific worldview that emphasizes objective, measurable phenomena and is skeptical of subjective experiences that can't be easily verified. Dreams are inherently subjective and private. Only the dreamer knows what they experienced, and dream reports are notoriously unreliable, influenced by memory distortions and the difficulty of translating dream experiences into words. From a strict scientific perspective, this makes dreams problematic to study and easy to dismiss. However, this dismissiveness might be throwing out something valuable. Even if dreams don't have mystical significance or predictive power, they're still fascinating windows into consciousness and might provide insights into emotional life that are worth paying attention to. Let's turn to some more specific facts about the physiology of dreaming. During REM sleep, when most vivid dreaming occurs, your body undergoes several dramatic changes beyond the muscle paralysis and rapid eye movements already discussed. Your brain temperature increases slightly during REM sleep compared to non-REM sleep. Blood flow to the brain increases, providing more oxygen and glucose to fuel the intense neural activity. Your heart rate becomes more variable during REM sleep, sometimes speeding up and sometimes slowing down in patterns that don't occur during other sleep stages. Your breathing also becomes irregular, sometimes rapid and shallow, sometimes deeper, in contrast to the slow, regular breathing of deep sleep. Your body temperature regulation changes during REM sleep in interesting ways. During non-REM sleep, your body maintains temperature regulation, though at a slightly lower set point than during waking. But during REM sleep, temperature regulation is suppressed, similar to what happens in cold-blooded animals. You become temporarily unable to shiver if you're cold or sweat if you're hot during REM sleep. This might explain why being too hot or too cold can disrupt sleep and lead to waking. If the temperature gets uncomfortable, your body can't regulate it effectively during REM sleep, so you have to wake up to either warm up or cool down by adjusting blankets or changing position. The hormones in your body fluctuate in characteristic patterns during sleep, and these patterns are different during REM versus non-REM sleep. Growth hormone, which is important for tissue repair and growth, is released primarily during deep non-REM sleep. This is why sleep is particularly important for children and adolescents who are still growing. The stress hormone cortisol follows a daily rhythm, being lowest in the evening and rising during the night to peak in the early morning around the time you wake up. But superimposed on this daily rhythm are fluctuations related to sleep stages. Cortisol tends to pulse during REM sleep. This might seem paradoxical since REM sleep is associated with emotional processing and stress reduction, but the cortisol during REM sleep might actually be part of how emotional memories are processed. The immune system is significantly affected by sleep, and REM sleep appears to play a specific role in immune function. During sleep, your immune system releases certain signaling molecules called cytokines that help fight infection and inflammation. Sleep deprivation suppresses immune function, making you more susceptible to infections. This is why you feel sleepy when you're sick. Your body is directing resources toward fighting the infection, and sleep supports this immune response. REM sleep specifically might be important for certain aspects of immune memory, helping your immune system remember pathogens it has encountered before, so it can respond more quickly if exposed again. The glymphatic system, a waste clearance system in the brain, becomes much more active during sleep. During waking, your brain cells are packed closely together, leaving little room for fluid flow. But during sleep, brain cells actually shrink slightly, opening up spaces that allow cerebrospinal fluid to flow through brain tissue, washing away metabolic waste products that accumulated during waking. This cleansing process is most active during deep non-REM sleep, but it continues during REM sleep as well. The accumulation of certain waste proteins in the brain has been linked to neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, so this nightly cleaning might be important for long-term brain health. Chronic sleep deprivation might prevent adequate waste clearance, potentially contributing to neurodegeneration over time. The discovery of the glymphatic system is relatively recent, announced in 2012, and it has changed scientific understanding of why sleep is necessary. Previously, the focus was mostly on psychological functions like memory consolidation and emotional regulation. Now there's recognition that sleep serves crucial physiological maintenance functions for the brain itself, including waste clearance, metabolic restoration, and cellular repair. These functions occur throughout sleep, but the specific patterns differ between non-REM and REM sleep. This suggests that both types of sleep are necessary and that you can't just get more of one type to compensate for missing the other. Let's discuss some unusual and rare sleep and dream phenomena that, while not common, are fascinating and reveal interesting aspects of how sleep and dreaming work. Klein-Levin syndrome, sometimes called Sleeping Beauty syndrome, is an extremely rare disorder where people experience episodes of excessive sleep lasting days or even weeks. During these episodes, which can occur several times a year, affected individuals might sleep 18 to 20 hours per day. When they're awake, they often exhibit unusual behaviors including excessive eating, confusion, and hallucinations. Between episodes, they're completely normal. The cause isn't fully understood, but it might involve dysfunction in the hypothalamus, a brain region that regulates sleep, appetite, and various other functions. The syndrome typically begins in adolescence and often improves or resolves in adulthood. Fatal familial insomnia is a horrifying and thankfully extremely rare genetic disease where people progressively lose the ability to sleep. It begins with worsening insomnia and progresses to complete inability to sleep. As the disease advances, people experience hallucinations, confusion, and deterioration of physical and mental function, ultimately leading to death within months to a few years. The disease is caused by misfolded proteins called prions that accumulate in the thalamus, a brain region crucial for regulating sleep. Fatal familial insomnia demonstrates just how essential sleep is for survival, The complete absence of sleep is incompatible with life. There's a phenomenon called paradoxical insomnia, where people feel like they're not sleeping at all, even though objective measurements show they're sleeping a normal amount. People with this condition will report lying awake all night, but when monitored in a sleep lab, the equipment shows they slept for 7 or 8 hours. This disconnect between subjective experience and objective measurement is puzzling. It might involve some kind of dissociation where people remain somewhat aware during sleep, or where they forget the time they spent sleeping and remember only the time spent awake, creating a subjective impression of having been awake all night. Paradoxical insomnia can be very distressing because people have all the psychological distress of insomnia, but don't respond to typical insomnia treatments since they're actually sleeping adequately. Sleep-related eating disorder involves eating during sleep with no memory of it afterward. People might wake up to find evidence that they ate during the night, finding empty food containers, crumbs in their bed, or food missing from the kitchen, but have no recollection of eating. Some people prepare and eat elaborate meals while asleep. This can lead to weight gain and can be dangerous if people eat raw or inedible foods, or injure themselves while preparing food. The disorder sometimes occurs in people taking certain sleep medications, particularly older sleeping pills like zolpidem, though it can occur without any medication use. REM sleep behavior disorder, which we discussed earlier in the context of people acting out dreams, becomes more common with age and is particularly associated with certain neurodegenerative diseases, especially Parkinson's disease and related conditions. In fact, REM sleep behavior disorder can appear years or even decades before other symptoms of these diseases. This has led researchers to investigate whether REM sleep behavior disorder could serve as an early warning sign, allowing earlier diagnosis and potentially earlier intervention for neurodegenerative diseases. People diagnosed with REM sleep behavior disorder who don't yet have other neurological symptoms are sometimes monitored carefully because they're at increased risk of developing Parkinson's disease or similar conditions in the future. Cataphrenia is a rare sleep disorder where people make groaning or moaning sounds during sleep, particularly during the exhale portion of breathing. Unlike snoring, which occurs during inhalation, cataphrenia involves prolonged exhalations with vocalization. The sounds can be loud enough to disturb bed partners or even people in other rooms. People with cataphrenia are usually completely unaware they're making these sounds and only find out when someone else tells them. The cause isn't well understood, but it's thought to involve abnormal control of breathing during sleep. While cataphrenia can be socially embarrassing and disturb others' sleep, it doesn't appear to be harmful to the person making the sounds. Recurrent isolated sleep paralysis is a condition where people experience sleep paralysis, that frightening state of being awake but unable to move, frequently rather than just occasionally. For some people, sleep paralysis occurs multiple times per week, or even multiple times per night. It's often accompanied by vivid hallucinations and a sense of dread or presence. Recurrent sleep paralysis can lead to fear of sleep and significant distress. Treatment often involves improving sleep hygiene, treating any underlying sleep disorders like sleep apnea or narcolepsy, and sometimes using medications that suppress REM sleep to reduce the frequency of episodes. Now let's explore some interesting historical and contemporary research findings about dreams. One of the most extensive dream research projects ever conducted is the Dream Bank, a database containing over 20,000 dream reports from hundreds of different people, some of whom contributed dreams over many years or even decades. Analysis of this database has revealed fascinating patterns. For example, dreams show remarkable consistency for individual dreamers over time. The characters who appear in your dreams, the settings, the types of activities, even the emotional tone, tend to be relatively stable for a given person over years. This consistency suggests that dreams aren't just random, but reflect stable aspects of personality, concerns, and mental life. Analysis of large dream databases has also revealed gender differences in dream content. As mentioned earlier, men dream about male characters more than female characters, while women's dreams have a more even gender distribution. Men's dreams show more physical aggression, while women's dreams include more verbal aggression and relational conflict. Men more often dream about unfamiliar people and outdoor settings. Women more often dream about indoor settings and familiar people. These patterns are statistical trends with lots of individual variation, but they've been found consistently across different studies and different cultures. Research has found that blind people dream differently depending on whether they were born blind or lost sight later. People born blind report dreams without visual imagery, but with rich experiences in other sensory modalities. Their dreams involve sound, touch, smell, and spatial awareness. They can navigate dream environments and interact with dream characters, all without visual experience. People who lost sight after age 5 to 7 typically continue to have visual dreams throughout their lives, suggesting that early visual experience creates a foundation for visual imagery in dreams that persists even after sight is lost. People who lost sight between ages 1 and 5 show varying patterns, with some having occasional visual elements in dreams and others not. Cross-cultural dream research has revealed both universal aspects of dreaming and cultural variations. The basic structure of dreams, with narratives involving the dreamer interacting with other characters in various settings, appears to be universal. Certain dream themes like being chased, falling, and flying appear across cultures. However, the specific content varies with cultural context. People from different cultures dream about different activities, settings, and concerns that reflect their waking lives. The bizarreness and emotionality of dreams might also vary across cultures, though this research is complicated by differences in how dreams are reported and discussed in different cultural contexts. Studies comparing dream content from different time periods are fascinating because they reveal how dreams reflect contemporary concerns. Dream reports from the early 20th century show different content than contemporary dreams, with more animals, more natural settings, and different types of social interactions. Modern dreams more often feature technology, cars, media, and the types of social scenarios common in contemporary life. This doesn't mean the fundamental nature of dreaming has changed, but rather that dreams incorporate the content available in the dreamer's waking experience, and that content has changed dramatically over the past century. Research on dreams in special populations has revealed interesting findings. Astronauts in space report that their dreams change after some time in zero gravity. Initial dreams often involve falling or confusion about orientation, which makes sense given the loss of normal gravitational cues. After adapting to zero gravity, some astronauts report dreams that incorporate floating and movement in three-dimensional space in ways that don't occur in the dreams of people who have always experienced gravity. Athletes often dream about their sports, and the content of these dreams seems to relate to performance. Athletes who report more dreams about their sport, particularly dreams where they're practicing or improving, tend to show better subsequent performance. Pregnant women show changes in dream content during pregnancy, with more dreams about babies, childbirth, and parenting. The content often reflects anxieties about the pregnancy and upcoming responsibilities of parenthood. Dreams during pregnancy can be particularly vivid and memorable, possibly due to hormonal changes and sleep disruptions common during pregnancy. Many women report bizarre or frightening dreams during pregnancy that reflect the enormous physical and psychological changes they're experiencing. People with alexithymia, a condition characterized by difficulty identifying and describing emotions, have been found to report fewer emotions in their dreams and less vivid dreams overall compared to people without alexithymia. This suggests that the way people experience and process emotions during waking affects their dreams. If you have difficulty with emotional awareness when awake, this deficit extends into your dream life as well. Research on lucid dreaming has exploded in recent years, with new techniques for inducing lucid dreams and new applications. Scientists have used lucid dreaming as a tool to study consciousness itself, asking questions about what makes an experience conscious, how voluntary control works, and how the brain distinguishes between reality and imagination. When someone becomes lucid in a dream, they're conscious, but their consciousness is disconnected from external reality, making lucid dreaming a unique laboratory for studying consciousness. Some researchers are exploring whether lucid dreaming could be used for practical applications beyond nightmare treatment. Could lucid dreaming be used to practice skills, like athletes mentally rehearsing their performance? Some studies suggest that lucid dream practice might actually improve subsequent waking performance for certain motor skills, though the effect is smaller than actual physical practice. Could lucid dreaming be used for problem solving, deliberately working on challenges during the dream state? Some evidence suggests this might be possible, though it's difficult to achieve reliably. There's even research on communication with lucid dreamers in more sophisticated ways than simple eye movements. Researchers have tried using sensory stimulation to ask yes/no questions to sleeping lucid dreamers, who can respond with pre-arranged eye movement patterns. In some experiments, lucid dreamers were asked to perform simple arithmetic or to make decisions about dream content, responding through eye movements. This creates a kind of two-way communication with someone who is asleep and dreaming, which would have seemed like science fiction not long ago. The study of dreams continues to reveal new insights into consciousness, memory, emotion, and the remarkable capabilities of the human brain. Every night when you sleep, you embark on a journey into this mysterious landscape of your own mind, experiencing impossible things that feel completely real, processing the events and emotions of your day, consolidating your memories, and perhaps working through problems in ways that your waking mind cannot. Dreams are one of the most universal human experiences, yet they remain deeply personal and unique to each dreamer. They remind us that consciousness is far stranger and more complex than it appears during ordinary waking life. As you drift off to sleep tonight, your brain will begin its nightly cycle through different stages of sleep. You'll descend into deep sleep, where your body rests and repairs itself. Then you'll ascend into REM sleep, where your brain becomes highly active. Your eyes will move rapidly beneath your closed lids, and you'll begin to dream. You might find yourself flying through impossible landscapes, talking to people from your past, experiencing adventures that would never happen in waking life. You probably won't remember most of it. By tomorrow morning, most of tonight's dreams will have faded completely. But while you're experiencing them, they'll feel real. Your emotions will be genuine. Your brain will be fully engaged, processing, consolidating, creating. The 100 facts you've learned tonight about dreams reveal just how remarkable this nightly experience really is. Dreams aren't just random noise or meaningless hallucinations. They're intimately connected to how your brain processes memories, regulates emotions, solves problems, and maintains its health. They reflect your concerns, your relationships, your experiences. They provide a window into the unconscious processes that shape your mental life. And they demonstrate the astonishing creative power of the human mind. Its ability to generate entire worlds complete with sights, sounds, characters, and narratives, all from the electrical activity of neurons firing in patterns. So as you feel yourself getting drowsy, as your thoughts begin to drift and fragment, as you slide from wakefulness into sleep, know that you're about to experience something extraordinary. Your consciousness will shift into a different mode, one where logic doesn't apply, where impossible things are normal, where you can be simultaneously the creator and the audience of the strange theater playing out in your mind. You'll spend about 2 hours in REM sleep tonight, having 4 to 7 distinct dreams, each one unique, each one a small journey into the landscape of your sleeping mind. Sweet dreams. May they be interesting, may they be restful, and may you wake tomorrow with whatever you needed from tonight's journey through the mysterious world that exists only when you close your eyes and let your mind wander into sleep. Rest well.